In the name of Allah, may peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyone who studies Islamic law will find that it is distinguished by certain unique features that are not found in any other legal system. These characteristics have been responsible for its stability, growth and relevance for even 14 centuries. Indeed, the Sharia has a lasting and global appeal because it is the final divinely revealed law for the all of humanity, in connection with Islam being the last in the line of divinely revealed religions. Thus, it is a must for this Sharia to have such unique characteristics that provide it with the durability and stability necessary to deal with the ever-changing needs presented by humanity throughout the globe and across time. Islamic law is the broadest, most comprehensive system of legislation in the world, far more complete than any man-made legal system today or at any point in history. It was applied through various schools of thought from one end of the Muslim world to the other for the past 1400 years, and only in recent times, with the impact of the colonization of the Muslim lands, has it temporarily ceased to operate except in a few places. It also had a great impact on other nations and cultures throughout its history. Many civilizations of the world borrowed their own legal system from Islamic law by way of contact with Islamic Spain, Sicily, West Asia and the Balkans. Some of the unique features of Islamic law I will cite here. First one, nobility of purpose. Every system of law has an objective behind it that it seeks to fulfill. This objective varies from culture to culture. It also varies due to the changing aims and objectives of those power. For this reason, changes and amendments are commonplace as nations employ law as a means of directing their citizenry to certain objectives. Islamic law, on the other hand, is not shaped by society. Quite the contrary, society is shaped by the Quran. This is because man did not create it, but in fact, he must recreate himself in conformity to it. In short, Islamic law aims at a great objective, that of realizing the benefits and best interests of both the individual and society, and warding off whatever is to their detriment, giving preference neither to the needs of the individual nor to those of society as a whole. The second one, Islamic law is divine revelation. All the injunctions of Islamic law are revelations from God, Allah, so that one who legislating for mankind is their creator, who knows best what will be of benefit to his creation in both this world and in the next. He knows the psychological as well as physical makeup of the human being, what will be in harmony with it and what will clash with it regarding this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says through his Holy Quran, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does the one who created not know? And he is the general, the all-aware. Man-made law, on the other hand, is the product of the human intellect that has limited insight which is continually learning and readjusting its knowledge of the human, and for this reason is often subject to deficiency and error. Therefore, the legislations that come from human effort are not always suitable for human nature. This is the reason why many countries made corrections in their legislations. The third, applying the rulings of Islamic law constitutes obedience to God. Following Islamic law is a way of worshipping God and earning His reward. Similarly, disobeying it equals disobedience to God and is a way of deserving of His punishment. Some types of crime have prescribed punishments that are supposed to be carried out in this world. Others hold a threat of punishment in the hereafter. Hence, the individual Muslim is always policing himself not only out of fear of God, but also in hope of His mercy and His eternal reward in the hereafter, we called Akhirah, which for many people is a far stronger incentive to obey God than fear is. As for man-made laws, the primary incentive to obey them is tied to the fear of criminal prosecution and civil liability, not the hope of attaining blessings and rewards from God. Likewise, disobedience to such laws does not result in as much a feeling of guilt as long as it goes unnoticed by the authorities. The fourth feature, Islamic law holds the distinction of being complete in all senses. So, 100% completed. It requires no amendments, no additions or subtractions. So, completed. It comes to regulate three different facets of human interaction. The relationship between the individual and his creator, the relationship between the individual and himself, and the relationship between the individual and his fellow humans. If we compare Islamic law in this respect to any of the man-made legal system, we will find that the latter primarily deal with the relationship between the person and others. As regards the individual's relationship with himself, who can often be his own worst enemy, it offers not guidance. It is also silent about his relationship with his Creator, who brought the person into existence and submitted the rest of creation to his needs in order to facilitate his worship of his Lord. In this area, the secular man-made law has conceived the idea of separation of church and state, where God is kept out of the law. This notion of separation of church and state is rejected by the Sharia, since God is the only legislator in that He sends down the law. Even though ethics is an integral component in both Islamic and secular legal systems, Islamic law differs slightly since it is also concerned with the future of the human being, not only in this worldly life, but also in the eternal life to come, by enjoining acts of worships that must be carried out by every believer in his faith. The fifth one, stability and permanence in principles and flexibility in application. Islamic law is built upon a set of fixed, unchanging principles derived from the Holy Quran and Sunnah, which have been accurately recorded and preserved. Many of these texts contain general rules for legislation without going into all the precise details relating to application. This allows the judge the discretion to take changing circumstances into consideration. For example, in formulating the Islamic political system, the religious texts give a general outline which includes such things as justice between the citizenry, obedience to political authority, consultation between Muslims, and cooperation in righteous conduct. At the same time, the texts leave the application of this general outline to practical circumstances that require a measure of flexibility. If the outlined objectives of Islamic government are implemented, the manner in which they are carried out or the different forms that this might take are not at issue, so long as the rulings imposed by the sacred texts and the principles of the Sharia are not violated. Modern legal systems, on the other hand, have no collection of permanent principles to go by, with the result that change and reform often lead to the downfall of their basic national goals and fundamentals over time. The foundations and principles of most of these legal systems, although sometimes based on the concept of precedent as in the United States, are exposed to change and substitutions so often that they become the targets of sport and corruption for a number of lawyers and legislators looking for their own gain. The sixth point, the absence of difficulty. Islamic law does not impose any obligations of great severity or difficulty. Whoever closely examines the rulings of Islamic law will find within them an obvious pattern of making things easier for the person. Moreover, all obligations that have been imposed from the onset have had leniency and ease taken into consideration for the ones who must carry them out. Allah has decreed that every legally accountable person must perform 5 prayers a day. No individual prayer requiring more than a few minutes. The one who is unable to stand is permitted to sit. Additionally, the traveler is given the license to shorten their prayer, which we call jam and qasr. Fasting too is obligatory for 1 month out of the year. In spite of this requirement, though, breaking the fast is permitted for the one who is traveling or is in ill condition, and so on. The obligations imposed by the Islamic law are few. They can all be learned in a short period of time. They do not have many particular